Guilty Gear is arguably one of the most underappreciated fighting game series out there. I know this because I've been guilty of underappreciating it myself. For one reason or another, maybe I just didn't think I was skilled enough to get good at them, or I just wasn't in the right headspace. I never really tried to learn one in depth. But when Guilty Gear Strive was announced, I made the determination that I would no longer let this game be a blind spot in my fighting game knowledge. And rather than just dipping my toes in the water like I have with every other Guilty Gear game, with Strive I made the full headfirst plunge. Well, after making the dive, I'm happy to report that I love Guilty Gear Strive. It's not without its share of faults and stumbles, but they pale in comparison to the gorgeous art, the electric soundtrack, the wildly inventive character designs, the rock-solid rollback netcode, and its balance of approachability and depth, each of which raise the bar for other 2D fighters to follow. Over 7 games and multiple spin-offs spanning the last 2 decades, Guilty Gear has quietly amassed some of the densest lore throughout all of fighting games. Just look at this never-ending glossary, timeline of events, and correlation chart, all of which are found in-game. There's a lot going on here. All of this is to say that Guilty Gear Strive very much feels like a climax of everything that the series' story has been building towards for all these years. And it's a story that's squarely aimed at those who are caught up with the long journeys of the core cast of characters. So if you don't know who that man is or his significance to sole bad guy, chances are you're gonna want to watch a recap video. Or 2. Or 5. And you really should put in that extra effort if you're not caught up, because once you understand who these characters are and the struggles that they've gone through to get where they're at in Strive, its story is actually pretty dang good. And it's told in a way that's unique in the world of fighting games. Boldly, there's no gameplay all throughout, making it basically a bingeable 4 to 5 hour anime series. And you know what, it's a decision I respect. By focusing on just the story, Strive is able to avoid shoehorning in battles where they don't naturally fit, and the result is a story mode that feels completely uncompromised by gameplay. When you do actually play, it becomes obvious why Guilty Gear has always been one of the deepest and most complex fighting game series around. And while that complexity is one of the things that has made it so beloved, it has also traditionally made it one of the harder series to get into from a beginner's perspective, which is something that Strive sets out to address. First off, big damage combos aren't nearly as hard to pull off as they were in the past. As an example, take a look at this combo in Exerd Rev 2. Now, take a look at a similar combo in Strive. You see, much easier. Okay, that's a joke. But really, in general, combos are much more rewarding with less of an executional barrier tied to them. Even just comboing a simple slash, heavy slash, overdrive combo can yield a humongous chunk of damage. The trade-off is that landing these big combos is a bit more difficult because you can no longer convert substantial damage off of quick light attacks. That's right, Gatlings as they existed in past Guilty Gear games are gone, which means that instead of a standard combo flow that looks like this, things look more like this. If you want that combo damage, you're going to have to find a way to land your beefier, slower, and more risky attacks, which creates a bit of a more deliberate pace and neutral-heavy style of gameplay, which I think is a great change that gives Strive its own unique feel and identity compared to other Guilty Gear games. And make no mistake, even despite that change in pace, this is still Guilty Gear, a series that throws many of the typical rules of fighting games out the window with unorthodox mechanics such as its signature Roman cancels. That's when you press 3 attack buttons to cancel the startup or recovery animations of nearly any attack at the cost of 50% of your tension meter. Strive's version of Roman cancels mostly function the same way as they always have, with the exception of the fact that they are now much more pronounced, with a giant clock counting down the remaining time left of the slowdown, and their shockwave now sending opponents slowly upwards, making it easier to follow them up with aerials. You can also add short directional dashes during the RC to alter your position when you come out of it, which opens the doors on all sorts of interesting combo opportunities. What it all boils down to is that Roman cancels add a level of creativity to Guilty Gear's combat that is nearly unprecedented in the realm of fighting games, and Strive iterates on the mechanic in thoughtful ways that make it feel fresh without messing too much with a great thing. Strive's base roster of 15 characters is a great mix of long-standing veterans and returning fan favorites, bookended by two brand new characters in Nagoriyuki and Giovanna. Nagoriyuki is one of the most interesting fighting game characters I've played in quite some time, combining two disparate archetypes of the slow, hulking beast and the fast, unpredictable pressure machine tied together by a unique transformation that can just as easily kill himself as it can the opponent. Giovanna, very much in contrast to Nagoriyuki, is a simple character with a simple game plan. Get in your opponent's face and never ever leave. She's got really good normal attacks, an extremely fast dash that she can use to get in, tap your toes, and then smack you in the face with a roundhouse kick, a leaping cross-up split kick that leaves you at advantage on block, and absolutely ridiculous damage if she manages to catch you in close range. As someone who has traditionally struggled to find a character that really gelled with me in the Guilty Gear series, Gio stood out as someone that I immediately understood and felt comfortable with. Plus, she's got a dog. When looked at as a whole, 15 characters is not a ton, but considering how different they all are and the wide range of fighting styles that they cover, Strive's roster feels bigger than it actually is. The returning roster all keep their general playstyles, but it's awesome how they feel very much like all new characters thanks to the new tools that they've received, and the ones that have been taken away. It's not a stretch to say that Guilty Gear Strive is the best looking 2D fighting game there's ever been up to this point. Arc System Works has all but perfected the art of the 2D aesthetic using 3D models, and Guilty Gear Strive is quite simply its best showcase yet. Everything from the smaller details like the way the sun rays hit and cast shadows on combatants, to the sheer amount of detail found in the backgrounds of each level is astounding. Even when they're just standing still, every character exudes personality in their idle animations, to say nothing of their actual movements and attacks. It's a shame that Strive has no insta-kill moves like there have been in previous Guilty Gear games, because they would have no doubt been true spectacles to behold. And then there's the soundtrack, which is bullshit blazing, as one might say.
That is bullshit blazing, still my heart is blazing.
I think that's a good thing. Let's just say it's a good thing. The vocals of the heavy rock soundtrack might not be for everyone, but fortunately, if you're more of a fan of previous Guilty Gear game soundtracks, you can spend in-game currency to fish up old songs from previous games and set those as your background music. All this said, not everything in Strive is a stride forward. There's no combo challenge mode anymore, which used to be a great tool to get familiar with a new character. The arcade mode no longer has its own character-specific intro and ending cutscenes, opting instead to just give some quick throwaway dialogue before or after the first and last fight, and having the story branch slightly depending on how you performed in those key matches. And along with that, the mission mode feels bloated, with a bunch of super simple and basic lessons that feel like they'd be better taught in a mode that doesn't force you to repeat the action 5 times. Still, the mission mode is worthy of praise, especially the later missions that introduce you to high-level fighting game concepts in ways that are easy to understand and give context to how they would come up in an actual battle. Not to mention the character-specific matchup tips, like how to deal with Mei's barrage of dolphins, Potemkin's hammerfall, and Leo's cross-ups are incredibly helpful, and I wish more fighting games would include practice spaces like this. And finally, let's address the lobby situation. It's not great. There's definitely some charm to the 8-bit aesthetic, unlockable emotes, and customizable clothes that you can equip to your avatar, but as something that you need to engage with at every level of online play, even for ranked play, it can be aggravating to deal with. But it's a blow that's softened by Strive's actual netcode being stellar. All of my online matches with the review build have been pretty much flawless, and while the real test will be once the game is out in the wild, if my experience in the other 2 open betas are any indication, Strive's online play on a technical level is a giant step forward for ArcSys fighting games.
Can't you see I'm blazing, still my heart is blazing.
Guilty Gear Strive is a milestone 2D fighting game that raises the bar for anime-like fighters in terms of its visuals, online netcode, and sheer creativity found in all aspects of its design. It's definitely a different flavor of Guilty Gear, with a heavier focus on fighting in the neutral and a slightly slowed down pace, but it maintains the series' soul with absolutely wild character designs, a flexible combo system, and a level of creativity both in its presentation and mechanics that is second to none in the genre. For more Guilty Gear Strive, check out the latest trailer and our video showcasing all the overdrives in the game. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.
さて遅いです。投げますね。すみません。さて重いですよ。静寂を賜ります。なんで勝てんかな。